inshallah. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. When it comes to a critical reflection or an in-depth analysis of this verse or of these verses, O you who believe and die not except in the state of Islam, is a few basic principles that we have to understand. A few basic principles. مقدمات علمية هامة جدا. Very important principles with regards to this lecture, with regards to any lecture, any class pertaining to the Quran and its interpretation. First and foremost is the Quran was sent down by Allah for many reasons. Many reasons, not just one reason, and there are many aims and objectives of the Quran al-Kareem. And from those aims and objectives is for the Quran to be thought about, and for one to give contemplation and reflection. And oftentimes when we speak English, we use these big fancy words, contemplate, or to reflect. Sounds nice, right? To contemplate, to reflect. And the meaning of the word in the English language is clear, it's plain, and it's known. But because of the English that we speak and the style with we conversate, oftentimes it takes you away from the actual core meaning. It's basically saying for you to sit down, for you to listen to it, and for you to just think about it. What is Allah talking about here? And why is Allah talking about this? And what does that have to do with me and my life? My past, my present, and my future. So, one of the most frequently mentioned subjects or personalities in the Quran is Pharaoh, Fir'aun. So, who is Fir'aun? Who is he? What is he? When was he? Why is Allah talking about Fir'aun? And most importantly, what does Fir'aun have to do with me living in Minneapolis or St. Paul? How does Fir'aun have an effect on my life, on my past, what I used to do, what I did, what I went through? How does Musa and Fir'aun and Bani Israel and Harun, what does that have to do with my past? And then Fir'aun, Musa, Harun, Bani Israel, what does it have to do with what I'm doing now, my current state? How does that help me living in 2019? The Red Sea and what is this? What's that? How does that help me? And most importantly, how does the story of Pharaoh, of Moses, of Aaron, and the Israelites, how does that benefit me for my future plans and goals in life? So you think about just sitting down and just using your head a little bit. Not too much, but just thinking about what's meant by this verse. Why and how. So this was meant by to contemplate onto something and to take what happened in the past, or to take what's in the Quran that's going to happen in the future and apply it to your lifestyle. So you plan on getting married. You hear those verses in the Quran about marriage and about wife and about husband, about children and offspring, and apply it to your life. Wow, I wonder what it's going to feel like one day when I have a son. I wonder what it's going to feel like when I have to tell my son to make salat, but he wants to play video games. And the law says that your children and your wealth are fitna. And you apply it and say, now I get the point now. It's hard and it's tough to discipline your son. It's hard and it's tough to tell your daughter no when she's looking at you like that. That's what that verse means. It's a fitna, it's a test, it's a trial. And one of the greatest tools and tricks of shaitan is to make the Quran a book of theory. Just a story book, just a theory book. It sounds good, it sounds romantic, oh that's wonderful and that's lovely. And to remove you from the waqi', the present day reality of the story of Fir'aun and of Musa and so on and so forth. If the shaitan can get you to do that, then the shaitan has made a very strong position against you. Even if you're not implementing, and you're not acting upon it, you're not doing it 100%, but you still have it up top, that the Quran is not a book just to be recited. And it's not a book just to be memorized. And it's not a book just for Ramadan and Taraweeh and Laylatul Qadr. But it's a book that is extremely pragmatic and practical, waqi'i, in my life, in my past, my future, my present. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, a day will come in which you'll get your action together. But if you're doing the right thing, but you believe and you say with your tongue, with your actions, that the Quran is just some type of romantic, mystical book full of stories and unseen things and wonderful happenings, the shaitan he's got you. And this, the lies of Allah, has happened to many, many, many Muslims. Many Muslims. So one of the most important aims and objectives of the Quran is reflection. Is reflection. And obviously reflection is a major step towards action. It comes before action. Reflection leads to action. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many ayat, He has censured the mushrikeen. He has blamed them. He has spoken down to them and spoken against them for many reasons. And from those things that Allah has blamed them for is not reflecting upon this book. أَفَلَمْ يَدَّبَّرُوا الْقَوْلِ. Allah says, have they not reflected on what's being said to them? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. Shall they not reflect on the Quran? And what's meant by reflecting on the Quran is having a good understanding of it and thinking about it and applying it to your daily, day-to-day life. So there's an extremely important principle with regards to this lecture. We want this lecture to be practical. What do you get from this verse in Minneapolis or St. Paul, Twin Cities, wherever you are, Burnsville, whatever part of Minnesota you're in? What do you get from it? How is this verse going to help you, inshallah, tomorrow for regards to marriage? يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. How does that help you with regards to getting married, staying married? How does that benefit you? How does it benefit your children, etc.? And that's the general principle with regards to the Quran Kareem. As Allah tells us, Kitabun Anzalnahu. This is a book that we have sent down. We have sent down this book. And this book is Mubarak. It's full of good, an abundance of good, and consistency of good. It's an abundant amount of good, and the good is in every single place. Mutashabihan. The book, one verse resembles another verse. One surah resembles another surah. One story resembles another story. So the Quran is Mubarak. For what reason? Why did Allah send it down? And why did Allah make it Mubarak? لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. For its verses to be reflected upon. What do you get to, and for the men who have understanding, who have intellect, for them to think about it. So this is from the most important objectives of the Quran al-Kareem. Of the Quran al-Kareem is reflection and contemplation. And many of the ulama of Islam, they have said that this is one of the greatest tricks of the shaitan. It's for him to make you think that it's just about yani aqwamin madaw, people in the past. Alright, and this is what they used to say, Asatirul Awwaleen. It's legends, it's all it is. And it lies no doubt, there are many non-Muslims today, many, not all, many of them, they'll accept the might of the Quran and the power of it. Can't deny it. Its eloquence, how it's been preserved and memorized. There are Muslims from so many different races and nationalities who have all memorized the Quran. This is a serious book. This is a real book. But it's just a book of spirituality. That's it. It is just a book of, theory. It's just a book of something that's wonderful and nice to hear. But politics of 2019, that's not the place of the Quran. World crisis, solution to the problems of 2019, that's not the place of the Quran. And any Muslim who believes and who says that the Quran is the cure, is the solution, and it is the answer for the problems of 2019, he's going to be called a fundamentalist, and a radical, and an extremist. And this is a part of that issue of them not reflecting on what's the point of the story being told over and over again if it has no practical value today. Why does Allah keep talking about Pharaoh, Musa, and Harun? Except that the same thing that happened to Pharaoh and the same thing that was done for or against the Israelites and Musa and Harun can and will happen today. Is that there will be an oppressor, there will be a tyrant, there will be a bully, there will be a wrongdoer, and there will be people who are wronged and oppressed. And they will stand up and they'll do the right thing, and Allah will deliver them against all odds. Against all odds. وَعَلَى هَذَا فَقِسْ. Every other story just like that. Of Ayub alayhi salam, of Yunus alayhi salam, of Ibrahim alayhi salam, of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi salam, of all of the people mentioned in the Quran and Kareem. The same thing applies. Everyone understand this? And not reflecting on the Quran and not acting on the Quran is one of the major manifestations of Hujran in the Quran. As the Prophet ﷺ complained to Allah, Surah Al-Furqan, إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. that the messenger said, وَقَالَ Rasul, the messenger, he cries out and he says, "Oh my Lord, my people have abandoned this Quran." Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah explains the levels of abandoning the Quran. And there isn't just one level. From the levels of abandoning the Quran is hajru tilawatihi, hajru al-fadhihi, is not reciting it. And then there's reciting it but not reflecting on it. And there's reflecting on it and not acting upon it. And then there's acting upon it but you don't make tahkim. This is the judgment. You and your wife get into an argument, the Quran says this. Khalas. It's not about what I feel or think. And the concept of a da'wah in the Quran, calling to the Quran, and the list goes on to their levels. And obviously you guys have to make that decision for yourselves. You gotta look in the mirror yourself. What is my relationship with this book? And how often am I sitting down and really realistically thinking about what Allah is saying to me? So this is principle number 1 for this lecture and for study of the Quran in general. Principle number 2 is that there are 2 ways or 2 angles or aspects of understanding this verse and understanding tafsir in general. One is to extract the verse and look at it individually. And the second way is to take the verse and look at it collectively. So, if we have Surah Al-Imran, verse 102, we have to look at verse 101. And then we look at verse 103 and verse 104. And then we have to look at verse 102 in light of Surah 3, Al-Imran. And the surah that comes before Al-Imran. And the surah that comes after Al-Imran. And then we have to look at the verse before and after, the surah before and after, in light of the whole entire Quran. So what's meant by this ayah? Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. A simple example of this is that statement in itself. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. O you who have believed. O you who have believed. This surah or this ayah is mentioned 89 times in the Quran. 89 times. The same exact statement. And we know that in life we can understand the importance of a thing through quantity and quality. Quantity and quality. And how frequently a thing is being mentioned. If something keeps coming up and keeps popping up over and over and over again, it has to mean something. Or a thing was only mentioned once, or twice, or 3 times, but it was mentioned very powerfully. Very deep, in-depth, profound passage showing you that thing is important. So it could be length, it could be size, or it can be abundance and frequent mention. So an example of size is Ayatul Dain. The longest ayah in the Quran is not about Iman, it's not about Salah, it's not about Al-Qital, it's not about Infaq fi Sabilillah, it's not about the Malaika, Aqidah, Tawheed, it's not even about the last day, the Day of Judgment. The longest ayah in the Quran is about debts. Collecting debts, paying off debts, being responsible, being financially responsible, and keeping the amana when it comes to money. Don't you think that means something? Don't you find that interesting? The longest verse in the Quran is about money. And that's for no other reason except to show you the importance and the tremendous paramount status of money in Islam. And paying and taking care of debts. Everyone understand this? Another way, reversal of the law is the abundance of a thing being mentioned, such as al-yawm al-akhir, billahi wal-yawm al-akhir, wal-yawm al-akhir, the last day, the last hour, the sa'ah, yawm al-liqa, yawm al-tanad, yawm al-taghabun. Allah mentions the hour over and over and over and over again because the thing is important. And also Allah diversifies the style in which the last day is being spoken about. As I just gave you, He gives it so many different names. The day of meeting, the day of standing, the day of mutual loss, the day of fasl, the day of this, the day of that, etc. It proves something. It means something. Everyone understand this? And then we have the concept of certain Quranic passages not being mentioned but so much or so often, or not being so long, but the story was a good, solid, wholesome piece. Strong, right to the point. Proving that thing is what? That thing is important. Everyone understand this? So when we have the statement, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, 89 times in the Quran has been mentioned. That has to mean something. Versus, Ya ayyuhal ladhina kafaru, oh you have disbelieved, is only mentioned once in the Quran. And there's a reason behind that. Alright? Another example of this is the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His names and His attributes and His actions. And from Allah's names is Al-Aliyul A'la. From Allah's attributes is Al-Ulu and Al-Istiwa. And from the things that Allah has done, His actions is Istawa. Alright? So, this is something that the people have fought and differed over for so many years. Is Allah in a mortal location or not? Can you just do what I just did? Can you look up referring to Allah? Can you point up referring to Allah? Can you say Allah is in a place, quote unquote? Or Allah has no place? Or Allah is in every place? Humans, not just Muslims, have fought over this for many, many years. And we know what most humans say and believe. And we know what some people say and believe with regards to where is Allah. So one asks the question, what does the Quran say about where Allah is? How many times has it been mentioned? How long was the passage and what are the different styles? An example is ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then He rose over the arsh. That's mentioned in the Quran how many times? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, or 7 times. And not in a different style, but with that specific wording. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ الرَّحْمَنُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى. So that has to mean something because it was mentioned so many times. Let alone the other ayat that talk about يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ. They fear the Lord from above. يُنَزِّلُ. He sends down. Al-Ma'arij. And the list goes on. We're not here to talk about this. Indeed, I'm trying to make a point of a thing being mentioned so many times in the same way, or a thing being mentioned so many times in a what? In a different way. And that's كُلُّهُ يَدُلُّ عَلَى أَهَمِّيَّةِ هَذَا الشَّيْء. The importance of that thing. And from that is Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. So before we get into Surah Ali Imran, before we get into those verses, just that style, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. 89 times it's been mentioned in the book of Allah. It has to what? It has to mean something. And this concept is further reinforced by the statement of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the famous iconic statement. He says, إِذَا سَمِعْتَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَأَصْغِ لَهَا سَمْعَكَ فَمَا خَيْرٌ تُؤْمَرُ بِهِ وَمَا شَرٌ تُنْهَى عَنْهُ. أو كما قال رضي الله عنه. He says, whenever you hear that, then listen carefully. Listen attentively. Ibn Mas'ud is not saying that you don't have to listen attentively and carefully to the rest of the Quran. He's not saying that. He's not saying that you can just be lackadaisical and lax with regards to the rest of the Quran. No. But he's saying this is a special amount of attention needed whenever you hear the words, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. He says, so lend your ear closely because there's 1 or 2 things, there's no third option. It's either some good that Allah is commanding you and telling you to do, or it's some bad, some evil, a vice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning you from. And obviously the believer can't dispense and do without either of the two. The believer can never say there's no good that I don't have to do. And there's no evil that I don't have to be aware of and be careful of. So before we get into this ayah, the introduction of the ayah and the beginning of the ayah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. In comparison to Ya ayyuhalladhina kafaru. In comparison to Ya ayyuhan nas, O man, O mankind. In comparison to Ya ayyuhan nabi. In comparison to Ya ahl kitab, O people of the scripture. Wahakala. Wahakala. So therefore Allah is addressing a specific and select group of people. Why doesn't Allah say Ya ayyuhal mu'minun? O you believers, those who believe in the current tense. But why does Allah say Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu? Those who have believed. There is no doubt هناك سر بلاغي بديع في هذا الشيء. There's a secret behind this. And from those secrets, not the only secret, ومن أسراره, from those secrets is the hadith of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, Sufyan ibn Abdullah al-Thaqafi. He says, قُلْ لِي فِي الإسلام قَوْلًا لَا أَسْأَلُ عَنْهُ أَحَدًا غَيْرَكَ. Give me some advice, O Messenger of Allah, that no one else can give me, or I don't have to get from anyone else. The Prophet ﷺ says, قُلْ أَمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Say, I have believed in Allah. Now be upright and steadfast, i.e. past tense. Meaning, since you have accepted something, and since you have professed something in the past, that thing must translate into present and future. Present and future. Since you've already accepted Iman and believed, now do ... And so it's a wisdom behind this. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is speaking to the people in the past tense. Because there's something that they can take pride in and something that they've realized we have obtained. We are believers, inshallah. We have submitted our will to Allah. Now it's time to drive forward. So Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. And the same applies to any other verse that starts off like that. And of course there are 89 times in which this is mentioned. The first of those ayat in the Quran or in the Mus'haf, bi'ibara asah, the first time that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu is mentioned in what surah and what ayah? When is the first time this is mentioned? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, quickly. Baqarah. Hat. Come on, these are Somalis, man. Ashab al-Quran. Huh? Al-Baqarah wala al-Nisa? Al-Baqarah, ayat ish? When is my flight? I'm ready to go home. Abu Salam. I'm ready to leave, go back to New York. What is this? What's it? أبدا لا أبدا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان أبدا, no way. جزاك الله خيرا أنقذتهم. He threw you guys a major lifesaver. That's the first time it's mentioned. You guys gotta brush up, gotta polish up. We get a little what? Rusty. طيب خير إن شاء الله. So that applies to that. طيب, moving forward. The next principle, and it's very important, brothers and sisters, to always have these different engagements, So I've already given you, with your friends, sit down and have a competition. Who can quote Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, like tennis, table tennis. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqulu right now. Yalla, you go next. And then you go until you reach 89 times. You get sharp. Everyone understand this? Khairan inshallah. Okay. The next very important principle is understanding Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu and Surah Ali Imran in light of Mekki versus Madani. Mekki versus Madani. This is an extremely important principle of tafsir, is Mekki versus Madani. And there's a reason behind that, and there's a theory behind that. Now we all know what you guys are going to say. You're going to say that the Mekki surah was revealed before the Hijrah, right? And the Madani surah was sent down after the Hijrah, right? And from the ways that you can tell the difference between the two is the Meccan surahs and ayats are normally shorter, and the Madani surahs are normally longer, right? The surahs and the ayat of Medina talk about legislation, and the surahs and the ayat in Mecca talk about Aqidah and last day and so on and so forth. But that's not always the case. There are times in which it's a difference, in which there are concepts in which the ulama have differed on. How can it be a Meccan surah or Meccan ayah? What is talking about something that was clearly in Medina? But we don't want to get into that right now. Khairan inshallah. Alright, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, after we seek His refuge, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Another important principle of tafsir and reflecting on the Quran is the translation and the interpretation of the meanings of the Quran. Is it possible? Question number 1. Is it permissible? Question number 2. And is it valid and accurate? Question number 3, for the Quran to be translated into English. Can we say that we can translate the Quran into English? The meaning of it, or word for word? That's a very, very long discussion, which is extremely important to understand. What's important is Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. What's meant by this? Allah says, O you who have believed, ittaqullaha, protect yourselves against Allah. That's how we'll translate it right now. Not fear Allah, but protect yourselves against Allah. Wa yuhadhdhirukum Allahu nafsahu. Protect yourselves against Allah's wrath. Ward off Allah's anger, Allah's wrath, and Allah's punishment. Protect yourselves from Allah's severe punishment. Haqqa tuqatihi. And that can be translated to mean haqqa tuqati, as it is Allah's right, as Allah deserves. Or it can be means fear Allah, be mindful of Allah, be conscious of Allah, ward off Allah's anger and wrath, haqqa tuqatihi, perfectly and absolutely. Fear Allah all of the time, in every single place, and never ever fall short in protecting yourself from Allah's wrath and from Allah's punishment. Haqqa tuqatihi, wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun, and never die except that you are Muslims. Never die except that you are Muslims. So in this verse, Allah Azza wa Jal commands us with something, and He prohibits us from something. And it's extremely important, and it's a major Quranic style. It combines the command and the prohibition. Sometimes the command and the prohibition could be the same thing, just reversed. And sometimes it could be connected and related. And sometimes it could be different. So if I told my son, stay in school and don't drop out. Finish school and don't drop out of school. Same or different? Same. Related, connected or not? Connected. Related. Tayyib will be an example in which I told my son is different. I gave him a command and I tell him what not to do. If I told my son, stay in school and never drink alcohol. Stay in school and don't drink alcohol. Same or different? Different. Are they connected? Not connected? You don't think they're connected? You don't think dropping out of school oftentimes based off of alcoholism, getting drunk, partying, connected or not?
Connected.
Directly or indirectly, but they're surely what? Connected. Everyone understand this? So in this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Number one is a specific address. Number two, He gives a specific command. Number three, He gives us a specific prohibition. Everyone understand this? This is be mindful of. Afterwards, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He does the exact same thing. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبِلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. The next verse, Allah gives a command, and He does what? Prohibition. Hold fast, all of you, to the rope of Allah. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. If we're all holding fast to the rope of Allah, obviously we're not what? We're not what? We're not separated. If we're all holding on to the same rope. Everyone understand this? Then Allah gives another command. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember Allah's favor, what? Upon you. This is how you critically break down the Quran and understand it better. That I have two things. I have to do something and I have to avoid something. But by me doing a thing, I'm actually avoiding its opposite. And by me avoiding the opposite, it necessitates for me to be doing that thing. Everybody got this or not?
Yeah.
Tight. Everybody clear on this or not? Khayr. The next point that we like to mention and discuss is the concept of a taqwa. A taqwa. What it means and what it doesn't mean. And some of the manifestations of a taqwa. Ma huwa ta'rifu taqwa. What's the definition of the word taqwa? What does it mean linguistically? What do the Arabs, how do they use the word taqwa? What's meant by taqwa? Give me an example in English or American culture of taqwa. Huh? In our language, in our culture, what's taqwa linguistically? Nothing to do with the religion in the Quran. Taqwa. Huh? Nah.
Consciousness.
I'm going to give you an example, a daily example of taqwa. Linguistically. How cold does it get here in the winter? Really cold or little cold? So if I came wearing this white thobe and these pants, you consider me a fool or wise? Without a question. What if I came here wearing layers and wearing thermals and dressed properly? That is considered to be what? That's taqwa. I'm protecting myself against the cold. What does cold do? Does cold kill you? Does cold, what's the problem? What's so bad with the cold? Cold is harmless. Scientifically, but it's what? Happens as a result of the what? Of the cold. You don't die. No one is clinically termed dead because of cold. Correct? You don't say cause of death, it was cold outside. Correct? The cause of death was what? Pneumonia. Hypothermia. What happens to your body when you don't protect it against what? Cold. Everyone understand this? So linguistically, the word taqwa is protection. is to keep yourself from something. To keep yourself from something harmful and something fearful and deathful. That's what the word taqwa linguistically means. So a gate between you and a guard dog is linguistically taqwa. A bulletproof vest is what? Taqwa. Everyone understand this? Wearing clothes under your clothes is linguistically what? Taqwa. That's what it linguistically means. It's to ward off, to protect, to shield yourself. Everyone understand this? Now what does taqwa mean Islamically? In the religious, what's the meaning of the word taqwa? To fear Allah. Okay. Well, how would you explain that when you have verses that say "Wattaqu yawman," fear a day? Turja'una fihi ila Allah, a day in which you return to Allah. So you're supposed to be afraid of time?
Are you aware? What will happen?
That can't be right. Taqwa of Allah. Taqwa. The word taqwa can't just mean what? Fear of Allah. Because the verse clearly says "Wattaqu yawman." Fear a day. Right? So you got to come again. What does the word taqwa mean in the religious sense? Huh? Being mindful. Being conscious. Alright? Anything else?
Doing what Allah told you and staying with
Doing what Allah told you, staying with. The simple, easy answer is to say that there's no one definition for the word taqwa. The word taqwa is too comprehensive and too great, too deep to just be defined in one sentence and one word. But you guys fell for the trick question. I would understand this? And this is why the companions and their followers, they gave different definitions of taqwa. Such as the famous statement of Talq ibn Habib. He says, taqwa means what? أن تعمل بطاعة الله على نور من الله ترجو ثواب الله وتترك معصية الله على نور من الله إلى آخره. Alright? Fear of Allah means to obey Allah based on what Allah has taught you and doing it sincerely for Allah. And taqwa of Allah means to avoid disobeying Allah based off what Allah has taught you. Avoiding the punishment of Allah. Meaning, if your mother says, don't drink alcohol, and you don't drink alcohol, you don't smoke marijuana, but you're only doing it to please your mother. You're only doing it to make her happy. You're only doing it because she told you to do it or not to do it. Then that can't be what? Taqwa. Because it's not tarju thawab Allah, takhsha iqab Allah. Or you may do something which is right, but you don't do it with the proper instructions. Such as driving to a place with no directions, no GPS. And miraculously, we made it here on time. And I says, I came here, we drove here, we had no directions whatsoever. Wallahi, we drove 20 hours with no directions. Even though we got here, I would be considered once more to be a what? To be a fool. Even though I came here and I made it here, but I didn't have any what? Guidance. So from the conditions of taqwa is sincerity. From the conditions of taqwa is knowledge. And from the conditions of taqwa is physical action. And this is why most cases after Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, it's always a command or a what? Prohibition, like Ibn Mas'ud said. And Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu very rarely is just something to just believe in. And that's it. And even belief is an action. Everyone understand this? So the point I'm trying to make is taqwa is practical, guys. Taqwa is something that which is supposed to be done actively. And it has to be action. It has to be done sincerely. And it has to be based off of knowledge. Everyone understand this? Everyone understand these concepts here? Listen carefully. Number one, and ta'mala, and tatruka. As taqwa is not lip service. Taqwa is not just talking about it, but taqwa is actually doing something physical. Everyone clear this or not? Number two, ala nurin min Allah. Based off of a light from Allah, meaning that you have to know what you're doing. And you have to know why you're doing it. And you have to know why you're not doing the thing and how to avoid that thing. Last but not least, tarju thawab Allahi, takhsha iqab Allah, is that taqwa is only done for Allah and not for the praise of the people. MashaAllah, he's a good Muslim. MashaAllah, he's pious. No, I'm only doing this because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone got these concepts? Another definition of a taqwa is that which is narrated, Allah alam. Some say that Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, هي الخوف من الجليل والعمل بالتنزيل والقناعة بالقليل والاستعداد ليوم الرحيل. Beautiful, beautiful line or lines. When he was asked what was taqwa, He said, "He al-khawfu min al-jalil." It's to fear Allah who is al-jalil, the most sublime, the ever sublime. Wal-amalu bit-tanzil. And look at the rhythmic, the melody, the rhyme. He says, in acting upon at-tanzil, kitab and sunnah, nothing else. اتبعوا ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم ولا تتبعوا من دونه إيش؟ أولياء. At-tanzil, what's been sent down? وَالْقَنَاعَةُ بِالْقَلِيلِ. And then he branched off. And he says it's to be pleased, it's to be happy, and it's to be content with just a little. I.e. zuhd. It's from the manifestations of taqwa. At-taqallub min ad-dunya. Last but not least, he says, وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ. And preparing yourself for the day of the big journey. Not the flight, not your cruise, not this, but the day in which you leave this world. The day in which there's no more mother, father, food, drink, sleep, but it's the ultimate life. Lahi al-hayawan, Allah says, if they only but knew. So the point is that there is no one single definition of the word what? Taqwa. Everyone understand this? And all of these different definitions are mutaqaribatul ma'na. And there are examples. And this is one of the most important principles of ilm tafsir, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned. And this prevents you from thinking that there's contradiction in the Quran. And this is one of the things which minimizes the khilaf of the Sahaba and the Salaf. In actuality, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Mas'ud, Zayd ibn Thabit, Hasan al-Basri, they didn't differ. لم يختلفوا. وَإِنَّمَا ذَكَرُوا أَمْثِلَةً. They only mentioned examples. So, if someone came speaking Arabic to you, and he said to you, مَا هُوَ الْخُبْز? مَا هُوَ الْخُبْز? And you were in a market, and you had a piece of wheat bread, so I have a khubz. And then the next day, he went to the market with you. And he says, "Ma huwa al-khubz?" And you picked up a piece of sourdough. He said, "Hada al-khubz, ya sheikh." And the third day, he went to the market with you. And he said, "Ma huwa al-khubz?" And you gave him a bagel. He said, "Hada al-khubz." And the fourth day, and the fifth day, and the sixth day. And he got 20 different images of khubz. So he goes back to the Middle East. He says, Americans, they don't even know what khubz is. They differ. They can't even eat together. But the person who understands Arabic, English, and the culture says, "La ya sheikh, all 20 of those things that you saw, kulluha khubz." It's just a different type of khubz. So Hasan al-Basri said this, what the ayah means. Ibn Abbas said this. Ibn Mas'ud said that. Ikrim said this. In actuality, they didn't differ. But they only gave examples of the intended meaning of that ayah. Everyone understand this or not? Everyone clear on this? As Allah says, لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. Allah says, you go from level to level. Some of them said it's talking about the Prophet. Some of them talking about health to sickness. Someone's talking about wealth to poverty, poverty to wealth, this life to the next. There's no contradiction there. But there are examples of tabaqan on tabaq. So this is one of the principles that protects someone from thinking or believing that the Quran has contradiction in it and a contradiction of the tafsir of the Salaf. Everyone clear on this or not? So, next point is fadlu taqwa. The excellence of taqwa. Who can tell me a virtue of having taqwa? What the proof? A virtue of taqwa. What is something that I get from having taqwa of Allah? What the dalil? Quickly. Fadl. وَمَنْ يَتَقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever has taqwa of Allah, Allah will what? Give him a way out. I.e., from the virtues of taqwa is that nothing is ever too difficult for me. No matter how long, no matter what I have to go through, Allah always blesses me. Every time it's a difficulty, we what? We make it through. Because of taqwa. And that's practical. Another example is what? Those who make taqwa wa aslaha and they fix the wrong, they have what? La khawfun alayhim. In other words, there's nothing to worry about. In other words, there's nothing to fear. What you did in the past is done in the past. I repented to Allah, I apologized, I gave back the money or whatever I took in damage and I stole. No sadness and nothing to be afraid of in the future. People are going to judge me. People are going to look at me funny. I'm not abadan. It's a virtue of taqwa. So anything else? Another virtue of taqwa? That your sins will be forgiven by doing the right thing consistently. Another ayah, another hadith about the virtues of taqwa. Something that proves that taqwa is an excellent thing. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. Allah will make his affair easy and smooth. Another one? There are many, many more. He will make a furqan. In other words, you have the ability to see right from wrong. People are confused. People are following this one, listening to that one. I can clearly see what to do. Another example, last one. Huh? فهو حسبه. Similar. نشكل شوي. Something else, quickly. واتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله. Yeah, Sheikh. So, are you saying that from the fruits of taqwa is that Allah will teach you? توافق على هذا؟ قد يكون. أسلوب الآية يدل عليه أم لا؟ لا يدل عليه. هذا إشكال من قال يعني ليس هناك فائدة من الطلب والرحلة، فقط تتقي الله بعدين ويعلمكم الله. هذا إشكال. That's a problem. We're going to give you a pass. Last one, inshallah. A virtue of taqwa. Kevin. Right, that your reward won't be wasted. No matter how long it takes, whether you win, whether you lose, whether you stay married, whether you get divorced, whatever happens, if you have sabr and taqwa, all of those hours will not be squandered. Everyone understand this? وَهَكَذَا. There are many ayats in the Quran that talk about the virtue and the excellence of a taqwa. And once again, as I've just explained to you, you see that it's a different usloob. Now, the next point that we want to talk about with regards to analyzing this ayah is مَا الْمَقْصُودِ بِحَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ. What's meant by fearing Allah perfectly? And is that even possible? And what's meant by haqqa tuqatihi, meaning fearing Allah as He should be feared? Haqqa taqwa. Mal maqsood bihada. So it's a fork in the road, guys. A fork in the road. Listen carefully. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. We explained that. Ittaqullaha. Explain that. Haqqa tuqatihi. There's one or two meanings here that we're going to use in English. Either it means fear Allah perfectly, without a flaw. Or haqqa tuqatihi means fearing Allah what? As Allah deserves to be feared. As it's His haqq. Everyone understand this? Everybody understand? So what's meant by the first interpretation? Fear Allah perfectly. Is that even possible? To fear Allah perfectly? Is it possible or not? It's not possible. So Allah told us to do something that's impossible? That's not what that verse says though. It doesn't say mastata'tum. It says haqqa tuqatihi. So if it's impossible for a human being to fear Allah perfectly, then Allah is telling us to do something that is impossible for us to do. And that's oppression. That's wrong in our view. وَاللَّهُ مُنَزَّهٌ عَنْ الظُّلْمِ وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ وَمَا أَنَا بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. So what does that mean then? This problem here is what led some of the people of knowledge to saying that this verse, among others, mansukha, is that it's no longer a rule. At one point in time, الصحابة كانوا مخاطبين بهذا الشيء ثم نسخ هذا الحكم. That the companions were commanded to fear Allah perfectly, but then Allah removed that ruling. And that's because how can a slave, a son of Adam, a daughter of Adam, fear Allah perfectly? No matter how hard you try, is that even humanly possible? So some of the Sahaba and some of the ulama, they said in the hadith ayah, mansukha. The ayat, fattaqullaha mastata'tum. And that ayah proves the last ruling is only for Allah to the best of your what? Ability. Everyone understand this issue here? And others they say, bal al-ayah muhkama wa lam tunsakh. And the ayah is not abrogated and its ruling has not been cancelled. Similar to وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. مِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَالَ أَنَّ الآية هذه منسوخة مستحيل. ومن من قال بل هي إيش؟ محكمة ولن تنسخ. So those who say that the verse was abrogated, they have their proof. They have the reason, as I just explained, and they have their what? Their dalil. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. واضح? And those who say that the verse was not abrogated, they have their reason and they have their proof. And they say what's meant by haqqa taqwa is something else. And we're going to come back to that when we read the Kalam of Ibn Kathir. Interpretation number 2 is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He should be feared. Haqqa tuqatihi, as is His haqq. What's meant by that? What is the haqq of Allah when it comes to taqwa? How? What is the haqq of Allah when taqwa? Standing up all night? Fasting every day? What does Allah deserve from you of taqwa? Give me a number. How many things do you have to do? Give me any number. give me a number of haqqa tuqatihi.
One.
5, you say. Only 5 things?
One.
One thing. Tell you. How many blessings of Allah can you count right now on you? Start. You're talking. You can see. You can hear. You have, mashallah, nice clothes. Beauty. Mashallah, handsome. What else? He said that. Mashallah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Mashallah. Tell you. Faddal. Yalla. Keep counting. You will. Yalla. Knowing your limitations is a blessing. You just blinked. That's a blessing. Hearing, seeing, teeth. So Allah has all of these favors on you, and you can only say one thing that you owe Him? That's messed up, ain't it? Something isn't right now. What's meant by haqqa tuqatihi? What's meant by as Allah deserves to be what? Feared. If a guest came to you, you came to New York, Abu Salam, and I'm not there, and I said treat him with the utmost respect as he deserves. That's not just one meal that the brothers treat you to. La, abadan. As he deserves for snack, tea, coffee, breakfast, lunch, dinner, kullu shay, because he's an esteemed guest. And if we only gave you one meal, one karama, lam nukrimka haqqa karamatik. Everyone understand the concept here? Everyone clear on this or not? طيب. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says regarding this ayah, قال ابن أبي حاتم حدثنا أحمد بن سنان قال حدثنا عبد الرحمن عن سفيان وشعبة عن زبيد اليامي عن مرة عن عبد الله هو ابن مسعود اتقوا الله حق تقاته قال أن يطاع فلا يعصى وأن يذكر فلا ينسى وأن يشكر فلا يكفر وهذا إسناد صحيح موقوف وقد تابع مرة إلى آخره وقد رواه ابن مردوي من حديث يونس بن عبد العالى عن ابن وهب عن سفيان الثوري عن زبيد عن مرة عن عبد الله قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اتقوا الله حق تقاته أن يطاع فلا يعصى وأن يشكر فلا يكفر ويذكر فلا ينسى. قال رحمه الله تعالى ثم قال ابن حاتم وروي نحوه عن مرة الهمداني والربيع بن خثيم وعمرو بن ميمون وإبراهيم النخعي وطاووس والحسن وقتادة وأبي سنان والسدي نحو ذلك إلى أن قال وقد ذهب سعيد بن جبير وأبو العالية والربيع بن أنس وقتادة ومقاتل بن حيان وزيد بن أسلم والسدي وغيرهم إلى أن هذه الآية منسوخة بقوله تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. وقال علي بن أبي طلحة عن ابن عباس في قوله اتقوا الله حق تقاته قال لن تنسخ ولكن حق تقاته أن يجاهدوا في سبيله حق جهاده ولا تأخذهم في الله لومة لائم ويقوموا بالقسط ولو على أنفسهم وآبائهم وأبنائهم. طيب. So, Ibn Mas'ud, he said the following points. Listen carefully. أن يطاع فلا يعصى وأن يشكر فلا يكفر وأن يذكر فلا ينسى. Ibn Mas'ud said, what's meant by fearing Allah حق تقاته as he deserves, 3 things. Number 1, it's for Allah to be obeyed and never ever disobeyed. Number 2, it's for Allah to be thanked and never ever shown ungratefulness. Number 3, it's for Allah to be remembered and never ever forgotten. What does that translate to me? Who can translate that in simple terms? To obey Him and never disobey Him? To thank Him and never show Him ungratefulness? And to remember Him and never ever forget Him? Is that humanly possible?
Yes.
Ha. Sheikh Adawa. Shalaik. ممكن جاوب يا شيخ هذا كلام ابن مسعود ليس كلام الرسول يعني هل ممكن المهم Ibn Mas'ud he said 3 things. Listen carefully, and these are the 3 things on your checklist when you wake up and when you go to sleep. Number 1, obeying Allah and avoiding disobeying Him. Going to college, playing basketball, playing a video game, driving a car, riding a motorcycle, whatever you do in life, is it obedience or disobedience? And how can you know if you don't have the proper knowledge? And this goes to show you that the beginning and the end of everything in Islam is based off of what? Knowledge. Knowledge is power. Number 2, وَأَنْ يُشْكَرَ فَلَا يُكْفَرُ. I'm driving my car to go disobey Allah. I'm driving my car and I'm not remembering Him. I'm not being thankful to Allah for giving me the car. Just yesterday I was on the bus. I was on a train. I was walking. I was catching a ride with someone. Then Allah blessed me with a new car. How am I thanking Him? Last but not least, وَأَنْ يُذْكَرَ فَلَا يُنْسَى. And for Allah to be remembered and never ever forgotten. As the Prophet ﷺ is quoted, I've said in another narration, مُدْمِنُ خَمْرٍ كَعَابِدِ وَثَنٍ. A drunkard, the person who gets intoxicated, is like an idol worshiper. The one who drinks and gets drunk is like one who worships an idol. How is this? How is a sinful Muslim like a mushrik? He knows Allah, he believes in Allah. How is he similar to a mushrik, abid, wathan? The ulama of Islam, they say this means that the one who drinks, he's going to and he must forget Allah. And that's unique to other acts of disobedience, in which even if you want to remember Allah, you can't. And when you attempt to remember Allah in the state of drunkenness, in most cases you do the exact opposite. As Shaykh Muhammad bin Shankit rahimahullah said, as Shaykh Abdul Muhsin told us about the harms of khamr and drinking alcohol, he says that there was a Muslim who was a drunkard. He kept getting drunk. So one day he was so drunk and he urinated on himself. Akramakum Allah, as they say, pissy drunk. Excuse my French, but this is language and the culture of the people. You get so drunk that you urinate on yourself, right? So the man, he decided to urinate. Instead of standing up urinating or urinating in his clothes, he urinated in his hands. And after he gathered the urine, he wiped his face, he put it in his nose and his mouth, his hands, and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawwabin wa ja'alni min al-mutatahhirin. He made the dua of wudu after he urinated and put the urine on his face. Everyone get the point of the story? Is that he tried to remember Allah, but his what? It wasn't there. And that's unique. Other acts of disobedience aren't like that. If you can make this sin, you do this act of disobedience, you don't want to think about Allah at the time. You're not mentally disturbed. But drugs and alcohol disturb your mind. And that's what we call it khamar, like a khimar, because it covers your head. So I'm trying to make a point to the youth. And the older brothers as well. It's not just young people who drink and smoke. Older brothers do it too. But people that try to make it seem like only the young people do it. Older brothers smoke weed, and they do drugs and other things as well. But I'm talking to the youth. The worst thing that you could do is drink alcohol or get drunk or do drugs, because in most cases you become like an idol worshiper. And the same applies to things that you watch on the internet. Haram things that you have on the internet. It makes you like an abid. You worship that thing, and that's why they have those terms of this worship and of that worship. In which that's all you think about, and that's the only thing that you focus on. So Ibn Mas'ud, he said, Haqqa tuqatihi, is for this never to happen. It's for Allah always to be on your mind. And for Allah always to be thanked. And for Allah always to be what? Obeyed. Everyone understand this? He mentioned 3 pillars of Haqqa tuqati. Last but not least, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And do not die unless you're Muslims. What does this mean? Don't die unless you're Muslims. Who can explain this to me? Don't die unless you're a Muslim. مَا مَعْنَى هَذَا? What does this mean? Don't die unless you're a Muslim. Who guarantees how he's going to die? Who? Me? You? Do you know where you're going to die? Do you know how you're going to die? So once again, what does this verse mean? The reflection. What? مَا مَعْنَى هَذَا? As if Allah is telling us that we have the ability to choose how we die. How is this? كيف هذا يا أخي? Please explain. Hold fast. But that's not what the verse says. The verse says, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ. Don't die unless you're Muslims. I.e., you have the ability to control how you die. Right? What does this mean?
Worship till like the yaqeen comes to you.
Worship until the yaqeen comes to you. That's not what the verse says. The verse is giving us the power to control how we die. There's only one answer for this.
Don't stray away from
Don't stray away from this. So you have the ability to say La ilaha illallah. How do you know you're going to say it when you die? You don't know.
Live by the first few commandments.
Very simple answer. That is to reflect and to ponder on Allah's names and attributes. From Allah's names and attributes is Al-Kareem. Allah is Kareem. Kareem. He's bountiful. He's generous. He's Manan. He's magnificent. He's kind. And from the manifestations of Allah's kindness is that a person who does something all of the time, He will allow that person to die upon that thing. and the one who dies upon a thing will be raised upon that thing. That's Allah's kindness. And a person may say who's not a Muslim, a universal law. Let's talk about sports. Basketball. How many of you guys play basketball? Everybody? At least 9 out of 10. أبو سالم كم؟ أبو عبد الله كم؟ من الشباب الآن؟ كلهم. إجماع ها؟ سكوتي ولا؟ سكوت إجماع سكوت؟ طيب. Everybody's playing basketball. I'm gonna ask you right now, what's the chances of someone who practices? He kills himself in the gym. First to come, last to leave. When he's not working out physically, he's watching the tape. He's studying the strategy. He's in the weight room. He's running. He's training. He's shooting. He's dribbling with his eyes closed with his left hand. He's shooting 500 free throws a day. 300 3-pointers. What's the chances of him falling out of fatigue in the fourth quarter? What's the chances of that one? Mumkin or not? It's mumkin, but what are the chances? Extremely rare. And that's because he's always playing. He's always consistent. He's always devoted and dedicated. So the universal law, quote unquote, is that in most cases, he's going to die upon his work ethic. The last buzzer, he's going to be out there running, playing defense, getting a rebound. And overtime, and because conditioning. And in most cases, when he retires, he's going to be rewarded for his hard work by being inducted into the Hall of Fame, by being such a good and thorough player. So the ulama of Islam, they say, min adatil kareem, qad jarat. They say the sunnah of Allah shows us man asha ala shay'in mata alayh. Wa man mata ala shay'in bu'itha alayh. Is that whoever lives upon a thing, in most cases is going to what? Die upon that thing. And if he dies upon that thing, he's going to be what? What is the chances of a person being righteous and Muslim his whole life, and then towards the end of time, Allah forsakes him? Yakhvulu. What's the chances of that? The Prophet ﷺ, he says that you do a deed, إِنَّ أَحْدَكُمْ لَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ النَّارِ وَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ حَتَّى مَا يَكُونُ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ إِلَّا ذِرَاعٌ فَيَسْبِقُ عَلَيْهِ الْكِتَابُ. The ulama, they explain this hadith. And they say that in most cases, a person who lived his whole life righteous and pious, it seemed like he was being righteous and pious, but deep down inside there was what? Saridatu su. It was something ugly and nasty that he was hiding. And then at the last moment, Allah did what? He was forsaken. Everyone understand this? So the concept of haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun, it means be a practical Muslim. It means practice Islam 24/7 to the best of your ability. And if you try so much, when you do fall short, in most cases you're not going to what? Fall too short from the mark. So that's what's meant by wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Don't allow death to come to you unless you're in a state of submission. Meaning, I prayed and I'm thinking about the next prayer. I fasted and I'm thinking about the what? The next fast. I made Hajj, I'm preparing for the what? So in the beginning, the middle, and the end, this ayah and the teaching of the Quran are what? Practical. And they're meant to be thought about and to be reflected upon, and most importantly to be what? Implemented. And the one who only knows Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, but he does it, is better than the one who knows all of the qira'at. Al-Mutawatira wa Shadha kulluha. He's better. And the one who recites the Quran and doesn't reflect on it and doesn't act upon it, he قَدْ اتَّخَذَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. He has abandoned the Quran. And the one who only knows a little bit, but he's implementing it and he's acting upon it, he has actually implemented the Quran. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, this is what I want to share with you tonight in brief. There are a few other things that I want to share with you, but inshallah that's sufficient. في هذا القدر كفاية لمن وفقه الله تعالى والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبيه ورسوله وإمامنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام. جزاكم الله خيرا. Thank you very much.
جزاكم الله خير.